Peter Darker, as I have coined him, also known as Miles Morales. Anytime we talk about this on the internet, people get very mad. Like, I already know there's not anything that I can say that's not going to get some idiot that's searching Miles Morales, and some weirdo's going to find the tweet of us sharing this video and they're going to go ape and they're going to attempt to ratio us and all that stuff. It happens because they are very protective of his character that they pretend to like. And Miles Morales is my issues. I've done several videos on this with that character, is that he's nothing new. He's obviously tokenized Spider-Man, but he is one of the most direct examples of a tokenized character because he was created to be exactly that. Editors at the time and the creatives of Miles Morales were not hiding the fact that he was created specifically just to be Black Spider-Man, wanting to really cash in on the Barack Obama phenomenon. They just killed off Spider-Man in the Ultimate Universe. They figure, why not have him be biracial just like the president? That is not my opinion. That is a verifiable fact. And that's why he was created. It had nothing to do with I'm just a very creative person. And no, it's just you wanted a Black Spider-Man, so you got one. Had Black Spider-Man technically, but you got one nonetheless. Now, this article that I'm about to show you guys actually surprised me. Shout out to Andrew who for sharing it out with me. Because while it exists, and I don't necessarily find this surprising that it exists in the books, this sort of villain v hero type of dialogue. But the fact that Screen Rant, of all people, who generally I looked at as like Shill-Media, would say this, and I'm interested to see what the backlash is going to be. It's already been 2 days, actually. It hasn't been that much, certainly not to the degree and when I say something or Neurotic says something about Miles Morales. But check this out. So I guess they rebooted him, right? There's Spider-Man, Miles Morales, or Miles Morales, Spider-Man, right? Number one, and Scorpion has some interesting dialogue, right? And he says right here, here's the picture. Was the real Spider-Man too busy? Is that he says that's why he sent the Junior League? Now the hilarious part of this is written by Cody Ziegler, by the way, is the route that the Screen Rant writer, who is what's his name, Joshua Isaac or Isaac, had to say, and he goes on talking about who Miles Morales was created. And he talks about, or how he was created, who he was. But then it gets interesting. He says, unfortunately, Miles must exist in a world with Peter Parker, causing many to doubt his place in the universe. Well, because he's just not Peter Parker. They present him. Look, say what you will. It makes sense considering who wrote the first Ultimate Spider-Man with Peter. The origin story is the exact same. In fact, the first pages of Miles Morales as Spider-Man, as well as in the Ultimate Universe, as well as the Ultimate Spider-Man, OG Ultimate Spider-Man, are virtually the same in terms of their origin, right? Where you have, it's a spider, Norman Osborn spider, and his tech. They actually having the same, he's having the same conversation, right? Talking about the same weird stuff. It was wrote by the same writer. And he's talking about the same, he's basically the dialogue's the exact same in terms of the story that Norman's telling. And then the spider ends up getting out. It gets out. That's maybe the part that differs, but then it bites the person, and that person becomes Spider-Man. It's the same exact thing. And this is where it gets interesting. In Miles Morales Spider-Man, he talks about all this, but then we see this right here. The Scorpion has a point. And this is why I was reading the article. I was like, wait a minute, what? He says Miles Morales is amassed his own group of supervillains, but he fights Peter's own rogue galleries just as often. Yeah, basically all the main villains that Spider-Man fights, all of the main villains are Spidey villains. He even has a relationship with the relatives of Peter's villains, and the reoccurring villain from Miles' world, Uncle Aaron, has worn out his welcome. For his part, Scorpion was heavily teased to be a villain in MCU's future, but never materialized. Perhaps Scorpion could fight Miles in a future installment, but in the world of comics, he's still Peter's villain, first and foremost. That is a fact. Miles Morales has indeed struggled to find his place in a universe that already has a Spider-Man. Should have killed him off with the Ultimate Universe is what I recommended that they do. Instead, they brought him into the main universe, and they make a lot of money off of, maybe the movies and stuff like that, which I think one of the most overrated movies I've seen. I still have a gripe with my own audience for this, because that was one of the movies that I remember people were like, oh man, you'll actually like this. And then I watched it and it was like, they said it made Miles Morales likable. And it's like, well, it's the same Miles Morales really as he is in the comic books. And it's like he's just moving in two frames, and the animation may be something that's unorthodox. But it was the most overrated movie that was overhyped that I've ever seen, certainly in comic books, in my honest opinion. That's not a knock or hate of like Miles Morales. That's just what it is. You know what I'm saying? And nonetheless, in terms of the books, he's killing it. We've gone over like some of the sales with the data it is that we have available to him. There's a lot of pretending to like Miles on the internet, stan accounts and stuff like that. But these people aren't really readers. Y'all remember that one guy who I caught who was like, I was like, man, dude, I know for a fact that basically everybody talking noise on this post or whatever, I know more about Miles Morales and I own more Miles Morales books than you. And that's still to be the case. I know that for a fact. And this guy pulls up his like Marvel Unlimited app, and he was like, do you or something, saying something snarky. And he scrolled down it, which to basically say, I have the books, but all he has is a Marvel Unlimited subscription. That's it. And you know how Marvel Unlimited, it has like this bar that will show how much you have read of it. And he hadn't got past the first issue. Oh, such a Marvel Morales fan you are. He says, currently Marvel is marketing Miles as a younger Peter, which, yeah, that's technically what they did. But Peter has already had those adventures, and Miles risks treading old ground. Miles is a fascinating character. That's the part I disagree with. He's just young Peter Parker. But unfortunately still exists in Peter's shadow. This is actually surprising to hear someone admit from Screen Rant. And while it is possible for two heroes to share the Spider-Man name, I disagree that should even be a thing. I know people well, what about this Spider-Man? Spider-Man 2099. Spider-Man is Peter Parker. You can slice that up whatever way that you may. They must be different from one another, he says. And that's been my argument, not necessarily that they should be different. My point was like, if you wanted another character, just create another one instead of calling him Spider-Man or having him look like a version of Spider-Man or be a version of Spider-Man. Just create a new one. It's a very doable thing. Requires work, which is what a lot of people don't want to do, but it is very doable. So my thing is, how you feel about that? And I know a lot of folks have emotional cling to like Miles, and a lot of it is, again, it's the social view stuff, but you don't really like this character. And what this article says is what I have been saying forever. There's nothing from Miles that we haven't already seen in a version of Peter Parker, period. That's just what it is. And then people like to point to all this uniqueness that has nothing to do with the character itself. It's like, well, he has his father around. Like, at some point, or definitely early on, Ben was a thing, his uncle, who acted basically as his father figure. To sit up here and just act like it's just not present just because his father is actually not dead here. Like that's not even an argument to the character of Miles per se. You like the family dynamic. Okay, you like his father, but what they got to do with Miles? There's nothing that we have not seen from him that isn't a version of Peter Parker. There's a lot of, maybe you're not knowledgeable. Maybe that's what it is. These guys aren't knowledgeable on the various young stories of the young Peter Parker, so they don't know any better. And they're like, well, okay, I was first introduced to this through Miles, and therefore I think it's different when we've already seen it. Anybody that's read these consistently have already seen it. Now, if you like that, just say it, but let's not pretend like this is like innovative here. That's all. I think that's the criticism per se, is that this isn't anything new. It was specifically created for various reasons of tokenization. And that's not up for debate or dispute. Wherever you're viewing the content, I appreciate you. If you enjoyed it, you may be interested in my comic book company, Rippaverse Comics. Our first book and campaign, ISOM #1, brought in $3.7 million with tens of thousands of satisfied customers. Visit Rippaverse.com to check out our store and stay up to date with the latest campaigns from one of the hottest new comic book companies. Also, my first big step towards a parallel economy was the development of my personal website, ericdjuly.com. This entirely replaced my Patreon. Now, if you enjoy this content, please consider becoming a member over at the website. We have an ever-expanding list of perks for various membership tiers, a forum, and a phone app. Some of these perks will even benefit you if you're fans of the Rippaverse. Anyway, I appreciate you so much for being a supporter and or customer. I even got a little love for my haters.